I had always thought that living in a close-knit neighborhood would be a comforting experience. The rows of charming houses lined the streets like a colorful storybook, each home telling tales of its own. We waved to each other from our porches, the warm, dappled sunlight creating a sense of camaraderie as we shared stories of gardening triumphs and setbacks. Our tight-knit community often gathered for delightful neighborhood cookouts, laughter, and the aroma of grilled burgers filling the air as children played games of tag on lush front lawns. It was a picturesque scene, the embodiment of the American dream. However, my idyllic perception was shattered one fateful summer when the new neighbors moved in next door. The Andersons, upon first glance, seemed like a typical suburban family, a snapshot of American life. Mr. Anderson, a genial man with a ready smile, would often engage in amiable small talk over the white picket fence that separated our yards. He was the kind of neighbor who would lend you his lawnmower without hesitation and offer a helping hand when needed. Mrs. Anderson, on the other hand, was more reserved, her demeanor carrying an air of mystery. She kept to herself, usually busy with household chores or tending to their modest garden, her eyes often hidden behind oversized sunglasses. Their teenage daughter, Emily, was a quiet soul who rarely ventured outside. She was the embodiment of the introverted teenager. Her presence felt more through the hushed whispers of her existence than any overt actions. It was this semblance of normalcy that would make the darkness that followed all the more jarring. But it was the younger Anderson, their son David, who sent chills down my spine every time our paths crossed. He was a boy of around 10, with an unsettling air of darkness about him, a stark contrast to the innocence one would expect in a child his age. His pale, expressionless face, framed by a disheveled curtain of hair, held an otherworldly quality that seemed out of place in our tranquil neighborhood. His vacant eyes, like deep, abyssal pools, made my skin crawl whenever I caught sight of him. David was socially awkward, to say the least, his interactions with others characterized by discomfort and unease. He wasn't at all adept in social settings, often standing apart from his peers, watching their interactions with an almost clinical detachment. His presence seemed to unnerve those around him, like a silent harbinger of unsettling things to come. The first inkling that something was awry unfolded during one of our cheerful neighborhood gatherings. As the adults engaged in animated conversations and the children frolicked in playful exuberance, I couldn't help but sense David's presence lurking ominously in the periphery. He observed the other kids with an unsettling focus, like a watchful sentinel studying its quarry, his gaze piercing and unwavering. Amidst the laughter and camaraderie, David stood apart, his demeanor an unsettling blend of detachment and vigilance. It was as though he were conducting a silent assessment, his calculating eyes tracking the movements of the other children with an almost predatory intent. His unsettling scrutiny cast a shadow of discomfort over the otherwise jovial atmosphere, an unspoken threat lurking just beyond the facade of our peaceful neighborhood. Then came the peculiar incidents. Our outdoor decorations mysteriously vanished overnight, only to re-emerge a few days later, carefully arranged in the Andersons' yard. Initially, we attributed it to harmless pranks, a playful attempt to engage with the community. It seemed like an innocent quirk of our friendly neighborhood, something to laugh about during our evening gatherings. However, as time passed, the motivations behind these actions remained shrouded in curiosity. The Andersons' yard became an unintentional art gallery, adorned with our festive ornaments. Rather than sinister, it took on a whimsical quality, sparking conversations about the enigmatic allure of their unconventional yard decor. The mystery brought a unique charm to our neighborhood, a puzzling thread that wove us closer together, all while leaving us questioning the true intentions behind this curious display. One evening, as I tended to my flourishing garden, I glimpsed Emily through the fence, tears glistening in her eyes, as she sat in the quiet solitude of their backyard. Filled with concern, I decided to approach her and inquire about her well-being. My voice, laced with genuine concern, broke the hushed stillness of the evening. "Emily, are you all right?" I asked gently, crouching down beside her. She hesitated for a moment, her voice barely above a whisper, as she finally spoke. "It's David. He's been acting strangely lately. He talks to himself and then disappears into the woods behind our house. My heart went out to her, and I placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I'm here if you ever need to talk or if you need any help, Emily." Our exchange was brief, but it left me with a deepening unease about the Andersons and their mysterious son, David, whose actions were becoming increasingly perplexing. I resolved to have a conversation with Mr. Anderson about the peculiar situation, hoping to extend a helping hand or provide guidance to their family. As I approached their welcoming front door, my ears caught the murmur of voices from within. It was indeed Mr. Anderson's voice, though the tone struck me as unusual, far from one of concern. It seemed somewhat strained, perhaps even a tad foreboding. Gently, I knocked on the door, prompting an abrupt cessation of the muted conversation. Mr. Anderson opened the door, wearing a polite but somewhat forced smile, assuring me that everything was perfectly fine within their household. I nodded, taking my leave, yet a lingering sense of unease clung to me, like a faint whisper of concern that refused to be entirely silenced. In the weeks that followed, my family and I experienced restless nights, often disrupted by peculiar sounds drifting from the Andersons' house. It was like soft, hushed conversations, the words elusive and incomprehensible, carrying an air of unease more than malevolence. One evening, as I gazed out of my bedroom window, I noticed David standing in our yard. His attention seemed fixed on our home, his expression not so much menacing as it was enigmatic. When he caught sight of me, he offered a simple, somewhat cryptic smile before vanishing into the tranquil embrace of the night, leaving me pondering the mysteries that seemed to envelop our once peaceful neighborhood. My fear gradually transformed into concern, eventually prompting me to address Mr. Anderson about his son's increasingly perplexing behavior. "I've noticed some strange things with David," I began cautiously, a blend of worry and frustration in my voice. "Is everything okay?" Mr. Anderson's smile wavered, his response less composed than usual. "Oh, you know how kids are. David has quite the imagination. It's all just a phase, I'm sure." I couldn't help but express my unease. "I understand that, but it would be great if you could ask him to stay out of our property and maybe keep a closer eye on him. It's been a bit unsettling lately." Though my words were filled with concern rather than accusation, the eerie aura surrounding their house only seemed to grow more enigmatic, leaving me with a lingering sense of disquiet. One evening, while I was in the middle of the comforting routine of tucking my daughter into bed, I couldn't help but notice something peculiar through her bedroom window. There, bathed in the gentle moonlight, was David, standing still as a statue, gazing directly at her. I hurried outside to address the situation, but as quickly as I arrived, he seemed to vanish into the night, leaving me with nothing but the cool night air. The ordeal had become too unsettling to ignore. My family and I decided it was time to involve the authorities, not out of malice, but out of genuine concern for the Andersons. We were convinced that something was amiss. However, when the police arrived and investigated their home, they found nothing to substantiate our claims. The Andersons appeared baffled by David's strange behavior, professing their innocence and maintaining their puzzlement about the entire situation. Our once tranquil neighborhood had transformed into a bewildering ordeal, with David's inexplicable presence casting a peculiar haze over our lives. Throughout it all, the Andersons remained, seemingly unaffected by the perplexity they had inadvertently stirred. In the end, we made the heart-wrenching decision to move away, leaving behind the darkness that had shrouded our once peaceful community. As the miles stretched between us and that unsettling chapter, I couldn't help but ponder the true nature of the Andersons and the enigmatic force that seemed to emanate from their son. Deep down, it was clear that something was amiss with David, and I sincerely hope he finds the help and guidance he needs to navigate the challenges he faces. Some horrors, I've come to realize, are not rooted in the supernatural, but rather in the disquieting truth that darkness can sometimes lurk behind the most ordinary facades. As a college student majoring in psychology, I was excited about moving into the dorms for my freshman year. It was the beginning of a new chapter in my life, and I couldn't wait to make new friends and embrace the independence that came with living on campus. The idea of studying the human mind, its complexities, and the intricacies of human behavior excited me to no end. I had worked part-time at a local bookstore to help with college expenses, and it was a job I thoroughly enjoyed. Surrounded by books, I felt at ease, and the interactions with customers provided the right balance of socializing for my mixed personality. A bit introverted in some settings, but extroverted when discussing literature and ideas. Moving into the dorms was a chance to meet new people, make lifelong friends, and immerse myself in the full college experience, a dream I had nurtured throughout my high school years. Little did I know that this exciting journey would soon take an unexpected and unsettling turn. My roommate, Zoe, was a friendly and outgoing girl with an infectious enthusiasm for life. Her cheerful personality quickly put me at ease, and we bonded almost instantly over our shared excitement about this new college adventure. We were both eager to embark on this journey and face the challenges and opportunities that awaited us. Our dorm room soon became more than just a living space. It transformed into our sanctuary, a cozy haven where we could study, laugh, and unwind after long and exhausting days of classes. Our friendship blossomed as we shared stories and dreams late into the night, making our freshman year memorable and enjoyable. Our dorm room was a modest space, designed for functionality rather than luxury. As you entered through the heavy wooden door, you'd find yourself in a small common area. To the left was a pair of wooden desks, each adorned with textbooks, notepads, and scattered stationery. The desks faced the room's sole window, which was framed by long, billowing curtains that added a touch of homeliness. On the opposite wall, you'd discover a pair of twin-sized beds, neatly made with matching comforters and throw pillows. The beds were separated by a small wooden nightstand, upon which sat 2 desk lamps and a shared digital alarm clock. Our dorm room was typically tidy, with posters and artwork adorning the walls to personalize the space. The walls themselves were painted a soothing shade of pale blue, providing a calming backdrop for our college experience. However, our idyllic dorm life took an unsettling turn when we noticed Justin, the guy living just 2 doors down the hallway. He was a tall, lanky figure with a perpetually enigmatic smirk on his face. This smile, while not outright menacing, always seemed to hint at some private joke or amusement that we were not privy to. Justin's presence, though unusual, wasn't inherently sinister, but it was his peculiar actions that began to send shivers down our spines. It all began rather innocently, with the occasional late-night disturbances that echoed from Justin's room, which was just a couple of doors down from ours. We'd often hear peculiar noises emanating from his quarters, whispers so soft they were almost inaudible, followed by eerie, unsettling laughter that seemed to linger in the air. Initially, we brushed it off as typical college antics, assuming that Justin and his friends were just letting off steam. But as the weeks passed, the lingering feeling that something was amiss grew stronger. One particularly unsettling evening, Zoe and I were huddled in our room, buried in our textbooks. The room was bathed in the pale light of our desk lamps, creating a cocoon of concentration. That's when we heard it, a slow, deliberate scratching sound against our door, as though someone was gently tracing intricate patterns on the wood using their fingernails. Our gazes locked, nervousness spreading between us like wildfire. Zoe hesitated, her hand on the doorknob, and with a sense of trepidation, she slowly opened the door. To our bewilderment, there was no one in the dimly lit hallway, and our neighbors' doors remained closed, except for one. Justin's door, which was slightly ajar, stood out like a sinister invitation into the enigma that was his room. Growing increasingly concerned about Justin's peculiar behavior, Zoe and I decided it was time to have a talk with him. As we approached his room, muffled mutterings reached our ears. It was Justin, conversing with himself in a low, almost eerie voice. Although the words he spoke were indistinct, the tone carried a sense of unease and discomfort. Summoning our courage, I raised my hand to knock on Justin's door. To our surprise, it slowly creaked open before our knuckles could make contact with the wood. The room beyond was illuminated by a flickering array of candles, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air inside carried an acrid scent, while the walls were adorned with curious symbols and intricate drawings. There, in the center of the room, sat Justin, surrounded by a collection of odd objects. "Worried?" Zoe inquired, her voice quivering slightly. "Justin, what's going on?" In response, Justin's grin widened, and he gazed at us with vacant eyes. "Just a little experiment," he replied, his voice tinged with an odd sense of fascination rather than malice. The atmosphere inside Justin's room was undeniably suffocating, making us feel uncomfortable and out of place. With a lingering sense of unease, we decided it was best to retreat, leaving Justin to his puzzling activities. We later reported the incident to our resident advisor, who promptly addressed the matter with Justin. However, it appeared that Justin had a knack for concealing his more unsettling tendencies when questioned by the authorities. As the weeks went by, Justin's behavior grew increasingly disturbing. Cryptic notes bearing unsettling messages would mysteriously appear under our dorm room door. Our daily lives became marred by strange occurrences, personal belongings vanishing only to reappear in random and unsettling places. The sensation of being watched seemed to follow us wherever we went. Zoe woke me up in a state of sheer panic. She claimed to have seen Justin standing at the foot of her bed, his eyes locked onto her with an unsettling intensity. I tried to reassure her, suggesting it was nothing more than a particularly vivid nightmare. However, the profound fear I saw in her eyes spoke of a different reality. Fueled by our growing unease and concern for our safety, we decided it was time to take matters into our own hands. With the assistance of some close friends, we meticulously documented the peculiar and unsettling activities we had observed from Justin. Armed with this evidence, we approached the college authorities once more, presenting them with the undeniable proof of Justin's disturbing behavior. This time, they could not turn a blind eye to our pleas for help. As the investigation into Justin's actions unfolded, a disconcerting truth emerged. Justin had a troubling history of disturbing behavior, and this was not the first time he had been involved in such incidents. The college authorities acted swiftly, removing him from the dormitory and initiating disciplinary measures. With Justin gone, the atmosphere in our dorm gradually began to return to normal. The unsettling months were behind us, but the memory of that eerie chapter in our college life lingered. Our experience had imparted upon us valuable lessons about the significance of remaining vigilant and the resilient power of friendship in confronting the shadows that occasionally loom over our lives.